are back. I hope everybody had a great weekend. Tonight we are going to cover something obviously that I just did in the clinic. My name is Dr. Heather Moore, owner of Total Performance Physical Therapy. Tonight we're going to go over groin stretches. So a lot of people are uncomfortable even saying they have pain in this area, and it is something to be aware of, especially if you're a male. You do want to make sure you get any sort of groin pain checked out professionally just to make sure it's nothing more serious. But when you say the groin, we're talking about everything basically on the inside of the inner thigh. People don't feel as comfortable telling you they have pain in there, but a lot of times hip pain, back pain, any sort of knee pain can bring a lot of pain in here. And if you don't address the inner thigh area, you're not going to get the results that you want. Obviously, if there's issues going on the inside, you need to address them just as much. So when we're going to do stretches for the groin tonight, we're going to kind of take this front hip flexor area down into the actual groin area. It's really important. These muscles can be super tender. They're really small compared to all the other muscles in your leg, like your quad. So they can be a little bit more painful. People tend to avoid stretching them, especially if they're painful. You really want to get it checked out and it worked on, because these painful groin muscles, inner thigh muscles, however you want to refer to them, can lead to a lot of problems, can lead to back pain, can lead to some pelvic issues. So you don't want to ignore them because they're just too painful. If they are too painful, you want to get them addressed immediately. You want to have a medical professional take a look, see what you need to do. If you are experiencing groin pain and you do want a professional to look at it, we do offer free consultations. All you have to do is call our office at 215-997-9898 and we'd be happy to get you in and check it out. But tonight we're going to cover just a couple basic stretches that you can do for the groin. So we're going to start off with just a simple, easy one. You're just going to spread your legs, okay? And you're going to bend one knee. Now you're going to feel a stretch in through here. Now, the biggest problem and the biggest issue people have with groin stretches or with hip flexor stretches is a lot of times they can tort themselves to feel it. If you don't feel a stretch, stop twisting your body and turning yourself in order to be able to feel that stretch. If you don't feel it, it means your muscle's long enough. You don't have to feel every single stretch super intensely. A lot of times you can just get into a position, you don't feel the stretch, find another stretch. It's okay. Don't worry about overstretching or trying to really make something work because you know this is a good stretch. If you don't feel it, your muscles stretch out enough. People really wind up pulling muscles and injuring themselves because they wind up twisting and contorting their body in order to get the stretch that they need. If you do it correctly and it's not there, then don't worry about it. So you want to start like this for a groin stretch. You're just going to bend one leg. You're going to feel it on the inside of this thigh. You may not feel a stretch doing this. Now, what you want to make sure of is that your toes are pointed straight ahead. You don't want to be like this. Okay? This is going to stretch something a little bit different. You can be, but it's going to stretch something different. The stretch we're doing tonight, you want to make sure your toes are pointed straight ahead, all right? And you're just going to bend this knee. Now, you don't want to start sticking your butt out and moving all around. You can really cause significant injury to your groin, and I see this done a lot where you're in this position and people are really trying to stick their butt all over the place to get a really good stretch. You're putting your muscles on a stretch at this point in time just by doing this. So to start contorting your body and moving your hips all over the place can wind up with you injuring yourself. So just be careful when you come into this stretch. If you don't feel it, totally fine. Don't start doing a lot of this. You can actually hurt yourself. So if you don't feel it there, you can lift your foot up onto a step. Now this is a low step. And again, this leg stays straight, this leg bends. You're going to feel the stretch in this inner thigh, in this groin area, into the hip flexor a little bit. If you don't feel it, you can try a higher step. That's totally fine. Again, don't start sticking your butt out, leaning forward, really to try and get the stretch. Here's the stretch. If you don't feel it, great. Don't worry about it. I'm going to show you a couple other stretches you can do to hit that groin area. But don't start moving your hips around. Don't start really wiggling around. You want to make sure your hips are pointed straight ahead, your toes are pointed straight ahead, and that you're bending into this stretch. this is not a stretch for everybody. You may not be able to lift your leg up there. You may be down here and you feel a stretch. Stop when you feel a good stretch. If you don't feel a good stretch, don't have your leg all the way up on the bathroom counter trying to get a stretch. That's too far. Your adductors and everything are stretched out far enough. So this is a simple stretch, should feel good. I don't feel anything in this position. This is not a stretch for me. So I don't usually do this one, but this is a really good one to get that hip flexor or get that hip adductor area, get some of that stretch on the groin. Now, because everything from here, hip flexor, all that is interconnected, you don't want to necessarily just try and stretch out your adductors because the hip flexors come in down and they come into play. So I'm going to show you a hip flexor stretch. You're going to feel this sometimes in your hip flexor, sometimes in your groin area. Now, I don't give this stretch a lot because if you don't do this right, and you can wind up hurting yourself. And this is one that I really find that people contort their body in different ways to get that stretch. Don't, okay? Get into the stretch position. If you don't feel a stretch, then your muscles are stretched out enough. If you don't feel a stretch, but you feel tightness where you're trying to get to the stretch, something else is going on. So don't just keep saying, oh, I gotta stretch this, and this is where the pain is, this is where I'm tight, this is where I need to get the stretch. I'm just gonna contort myself in order to do that. Just means that that's where the pain or the tightness may be felt, doesn't necessarily mean that's exactly where it is. So be careful. It can be deceiving sometimes when you're feeling pain right in this hip flexor, right in this groin area, and you're trying desperately to stretch it out, and you're trying to get into a position that will stretch it out, when really it's actually another muscle that's causing the pain in that area, and you winding up contorting yourself and moving yourself all around to feel a stretch right there is actually causing more harm. So the next one we're going to do is we're going to get on one knee. I just have a pad here because I don't feel like kneeling on the hard ground at the end of the night. So you don't need this. It doesn't add to the stretch. You want to make sure your hips are square. So a lot of times with this, people tend to have one of their hips drop back, especially as you come into kneeling. You want to make sure that straight across your hips are even. You want to push your hips forward. And then you want to just lean forward on this leg. You're going to feel a stretch through the quad. You may feel it in the hip flexor. You may feel it in the groin, depending on which is tightest. You may feel nothing. Now, this is one that I see a lot of people doing this, and then they're overhead, and I don't know what they're doing. It's bizarre. This is the stretch. You can put your hands right here and lean forward. This is the entire stretch. If you feel nothing, don't do this stretch. If you feel pain in your knee because you're kneeling on it, don't do this stretch. You can get into a really, really difficult position in yoga doing this stretch. I literally cannot do it. It causes me severe pain in my kneecap. I can't do it. So don't think you have to do every stretch in order to be able to stretch these muscles out. You don't have to do everything. These are just suggestions. And again, if you feel pain and you don't know and you're just trying to diagnose yourself and you can't, we do offer free consultations. You just have to call office 215-997-9898 and we'd be happy to get you in. The next stretch I'm going to go over is my favorite one of all time. Everyone's seen me do this probably 100 times if you watch our videos. This is how I can feel my groin being stretched. So it is the figure 4. When I get a groin irritation, this is how I generally can stretch it out. I just plop my ankle up here and I let it. Sometimes I'll give a gentle push. Right now I can feel it being stretched out. And you'll feel the stretch in through here, in through here, in through there. Again, you may not feel it. You may apply a gentle pressure downward on your knee if you don't feel anything. But again, if you apply a gentle pressure down and you still don't feel a stretch, your adductors, that hip flexor, all of that is stretched out enough. Let it alone. Don't continue to push on it so that way you're actually irritating it and you're causing yourself some pain. And then you can switch and go to the other side. Just like this. You want to allow this gravity to go to work. I don't feel a stretch so much on this side at all, but again, you can apply that light pressure. You can feel the stretch in through your groin, in through your adductors, in through your hip flexors, in through your quad. The final one I'm going to show you is more of a quad stretch, but because you can hit the hip flexor with it, we're going to go over it. This is the standing quad stretch, so you're just going to lift your leg up and pull your quad behind you or pull your leg behind you. You really want to try and keep your back straight on this one. All right, you don't want to try and arch your back or anything like that. Pelvis should be tucked under, hips should be square, and then just gently try and bring your leg back. A lot of times you're gonna feel a stretch more in the quad with that one, totally fine. And then of course, as always, there's the foam roller, but we're not gonna go into that tonight. But if you do have groin issues and you want to get on the foam roller, spike is fantastic. Getting that rumble roller on that adductor area. It's a little bit trickier in the hip flexor area. Not recommended if you're pregnant or you got any hernias, but down in here, you can really get into that area and break up some of that tissue. If you are experiencing groin pain and hip pain and want a free consultation with a doctor of physical therapy, all you have to do is call our office at 215-997-9898 and we'd be happy to get you in. Thanks and have a good night.